my man, and he was talking about how like, yeah, dude, no shit. They have the best player in the league, the black guy with the afro. I know. I literally was like, wait, no.
And
What? He's
and
the
here's the
best player
funny
in
thing
the
about
league.
that. Here's the funny thing. I don't even lead the team in scoring. Like I let my team score. But if I'm drawing double, I'm not going to say triple teams, but if I'm drawing double teams, so my guys who can knock down the guaranteed jumper and just like guaranteed three, and if I'm locking down their best player, like I've always prided myself on defense. Even in my Long Beach State days, even when I was barely making it off the bench, they were my assistant coaches were saying maybe we should put Ulric in on that guy. When I was playing the Drew League, like they're saying maybe we should put Ulric on James Harden. Maybe we should put Ulric on Darrell Wright. Not to say that I'm good enough to stop them, Bobby Brown. Not to say I'm good enough to hold them down, Coutinho Mobley. But I'm going if anyone is going to help our team win, it would be okay. Ulrich needs to guard that guy in order to help us not let that guy get 40 points. And yeah, and I held NBA players to single digits, and that's okay.
Respect.
Respect.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another episode of the Bitcoin Ballers podcast. I am your host, Q, and I'm joined by my co-host, Ulrich, the best player in all of the Wilson Park rec leagues.
South Bay represents.
Let's dive right on into it because we're going to keep this short and sweet. But the playoffs are afoot. We've essentially seen every single team play 2 games. We just wrapped up a really tight 76ers game, but they take a 3-0 series lead on the Nets. Let's just start right there. And I'm going to come out and just kind of say, like, no real surprises. Like this James Harden flagrant 2. That's sort of my reaction to the call. I didn't think it was a flagrant 2, but fine. The refs are being very generous. 76ers are holding up their end of the bargain. I think they breeze into the next round.
I mean, this was the Nets game to win. Again, like I'll be honest, I think I was probably sipping on a nice IPA when that flagrant 2 happened. So I actually missed that call. I'll be honest. But for the first 3 quarters, I was focused in and I'm like, for the Nets to be this far in control, for the Nets to be this in control of this game, and for their play, even though they were inefficient, it's just like, they're shooting 43% from the field. Their best players are shooting, 30, low 40s. This was their game to win at home. They lost at the end. This is not the way to elongate your presence in the playoffs. You're already expected to lose to the Sixers. Give them a good fight. This series is over.
Yeah, I think that it comes to no surprise, at least to me. I know that you, the diehard Brooklyn Nets fan of our show, might be a little heartbroken at this, but we're gonna glide on over.
No, don't let me give any feedback on that. That's fine because that's fine. Because I'm a diehard.
Brooklyn Nets do not need more than 30 seconds talked about on this episode.
KD today. And Kyrie, bro.
Don't play for the Brooklyn Nets. You had one too many IPAs. Anyways, let's go over to the Celtics Hawks, which have actually been way more competitive games than the series suggests. Obviously, both of you, both games, Jesus, ended with Celtics victories. Again, you're not really surprised by that. I'm loving the fight out of the Hawks, but beyond that, sure, they might get a game at home, but I wouldn't even be surprised if the Celtics take care of business. Shout out Malcolm Brogdon too, our 6th man of the year. My pick for 6th man of the year as well. Just, reminding you of your wrong takes.
So remind me when we get to my defensive player of the year pick. Okay. Just so you know. But anyways,
although he was caught stat stuffing, so
it technically is my pick as well because I didn't do my homework. And I'm like, yeah, that's an obvious pick. But I would say the Celtics are generally outmatching the Hawks that have a good, well-rounded team. But the Celtics are a playoff I'm sorry, a championship capable team. Everything that the Hawks have, the Celtics can match, and then some. And that's really what it boils down to. I don't fault that team, nor do I, and I applaud their ability to gain ground with that change of coach. I like Nate McMillan, but it doesn't fit what maybe, Trey Young doesn't like the coach, whatever the chemistry may be. Nate McMillan is a great coach for another team. Gosh, I still forget the former Utah coach's name, but he is a better fit for them, and it shows. And they're fighting. They're showing competitiveness, and they're going to lose, and that's just what it boils down to.
I hate talking about how good this Celtics team is, but honestly, the Celtics team, after just 2 games, if you had to pick a team out of the East, even I would kind of suck it up and be like, all right, like you don't know the status of Giannis at this point. I'm not convinced in the 76ers team. Like, and the Cavs had that surprise loss in game 1. The Celtics have looked the nicest of that foursome that we talked about in the East, but regardless, I think that in the next round we'll really see them tested. And I think to your point, like everything the Hawks can do, the Celtics can just do that much better with not a lot of effort, and it is showing. I think there's a little bit of them playing down. There were a couple series I saw where I was like, that just you're looking a little lazy, guys. Like I think there was one play where Jaylen Brown just like slowed the tempo in the wrong way, and I was like, what are you? No, like attack. You're not attacking enough. So we'll see. Could they sweep? Sure. I'll be the only sweepstakes person on this show because Ulric doesn't like to make that kind of a call. But regardless, I think Celtics handled this very easily. Now let's go to the 2 series that I think could get interesting. And it's not because both of these series are 1-1. I'll start with the more. I guess it's hard to quantify how it's more surprising, but let's start with the number 1 seeded Milwaukee Bucks dropping game 1 to the Miami Heat 8th seed. Also worth reminding everyone, despite being the 8th seed, they are the Southeastern Division champions. But it is also worth pointing out and noting that Giannis left game 1 injured. That was the game the Heat won. I just lost Ulric yet again. But in game 2, with Giannis out, the Miami Heat were unable to capitalize, and the rest of the Bucks team got the job done. And we've seen before when the Bucks made their finals run, they won games without Giannis in that playoff stretch, and they got it done. This team they have built around Giannis is a championship caliber team. You have the guy who finished second for Defensive Player of the Year in Brook Lopez. You've got Chris Middleton, who's a bucket when healthy. You got Drew Holiday going off, able to continuously lock down anyone and demands the respect of a true floor general. So regardless of Giannis's injury and how long he is out, I frankly still just don't expect to see this Heat team get the job done because they are their own worst enemy. In a game that they should have won because the other team's best player was not there, they couldn't capitalize in that situation. They beat themselves with a lot of bad turnovers, with a lot of poor shot selection. And it just, like, as much respect as I want to give the Bucks for winning that game, because they earned the win. They absolutely earned the win. But it was much closer than it needed to be, due in large part because the Heat beat themselves a little bit here. I'm going to see where Ulric is. That said, if the Heat can get out of their own way, there we go.
Oh, this always happens. I swear, this is the only place where we shut down. We're gonna have to figure that one out. My gaming is fine.
I'll give you the TLDR. I essentially said that the Heat kind of beat themselves in game 2. They couldn't take advantage of Giannis being out. They were playing excellent in game one, even while Giannis was there. So they showed that they can compete with this team. But they've also shown us from the course of the season, like they just get in their own way. And game two exposed that. And I think unfortunately, Giannis can sit out this series. And I genuinely believe this Bucks, the rest of the Bucks team will get it done against this Heat team. And it might not be because of them; it might just be because the Heat lose more than the rest of the Bucks team steps up.
So you're saying that essentially the Bucks will win just because the Heat just can't step up. Is that what I'm hearing? And I tend to agree. And this is why the Bucks are a number one team. Giannis was out during the season. In fact, every big team, every major team essentially had one of their players, their star players, out for a significant amount of time. Whether you're the Lakers, the Grizzlies, the Warriors, everyone had minimal support from their stars, and yet still the Bucks were, what did they lose, 18 games during the season, 19, 20, no more than 20. This is the kind of thing that makes these teams, we have the narrative of, well, oh, it's going to be interesting, it's going to be tight, and then we come to the realization it's the first round, and the teams that are supposed to win the first round win the first round. And we have already talked about the series that are supposed to be close, and we're going to get to those soon. But the Bucks, the Celtics, facing off against legitimate playoff teams, legitimate stars, legitimately built teams, and yet still star out, and they're still struggling because they are an 8 seed, and that's what it boils down to.
We're going to pretty much be getting into all these series. We'll continue on, but if you go down the list of all of the game one surprise wins, and you can just call them surprise wins based on seeding. So the Heat winning their game one match, the Knicks, the Lakers, the Clippers, all of these game one surprise wins were followed up by a loss. So none of these teams fully capitalized. They stole that game. They took home court advantage back in theory, and we'll get into which ones were meant more than the others in a second here. But I do think it is worth highlighting, Lakers, call it the Mickey Mouse title all you want, but in the first and the second round, they dropped game one both times and still won those games in 5. They literally went on to win the next 4. So the Lakers are on that list of, hey, they won the game one, but then lost game 2. I'm not necessarily saying Memphis is going to steamroll, but I'm just saying like the Bucks are the perfect candidate to win their series in 5 after the surprise loss, though.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of these teams, they're so confident. These players, basketball players, the ego is beyond. Everyone who knows me knows I have a sense of a semblance of some sort of ego. It's like, oh, Ulric's so confident, or Ulric has a big ego. Ulric's full of himself. Imagine how these players, where they've been successful and dominant for their whole lives, and when you think of, and then they're then add on to their veterans, and they've been there, done that. The type that's LeBron, or even the Milwaukee Bucks, where they say, you know what, we won 1, we're good. And because they are fully confident that they're going to win in 6, or they're going to win in 7, and that's good enough for them. I'm not going to say, I'm too young to say, oh, it wasn't like that back in the 80s or even the 90s. I didn't pay attention to the nuances of how players addressed each and every game. But I will say that the Lakers, and we'll get to them later, but those are the type of games that's like, okay, now you're ahead, and now you smash them, and now you take their heart. You would think, but maybe LeBron says, or AD says, maybe I'll take a half a game off and not really trip that we lose, because I'm just feeling them out, and I'll take advantage of the weaknesses I notice for the next game.
Yeah, I can see that. I think, this is why I love the NBA playoffs. You got 7 games. It's a boxing match. round one, round two are in the books now. These teams are sort of landing some punches. And they see what'll work. What do you think the Heat need to do to stand a fighting chance to surprise everyone with a series win?
Well, remember that they used to be a big 3-point shooting team when they were playing Duncan Robinson. And not to say I'm a big Duncan Robinson fan, but there is a correlation, not going to say causation, but a correlation between Duncan not playing anymore, being out of the rotation, them being a bottom.
Are you saying Duncan Robinson is the puzzle piece that takes them from a
Nope.
1 seed to an 8 seed? I
Nope.
believe that is the conclusion you were trying to draw.
Nope. But what I'm saying is that whoever they have, Caleb Martin or I forget his name, the other two-way player, he's very solid. I should have my numbers up.
The Israeli kid, right?
Yeah. But these guys who can shoot and can add that role player pop to them, you don't expect Jimmy Butler to make threes, but these are the Miami essentially has to keep up with the 3-point shooting. And because they're lesser, they have to have a better offensive efficiency than the Milwaukee Bucks. And that means that Milwaukee, I think, didn't they break a playoff record or tie a playoff record with 3-pointers in game 2? Miami's going to have to shoot as if they were not the Miami Heat of 2022, 2023. And that may be because Tyler Hero is kind of out with a broken hand, that maybe they play Duncan Robinson. Maybe he makes 2 threes to put them over the edge of 3-pointer efficiency. But their possessions are going to have to be a little more efficient. I love Jimmy Butler, and I think he's a beast and a dog, and he's just like he ain't going to lose to no one-on-one. But he's a 2-point shooter, and the Milwaukee Bucks are every bit dog and tough and veteran and savvy. And they got shooters all up and down that line. Even the worst player in their 8-man rotation, I think his name is Carter, the backup point guard to Holiday, he's still 40% shooting from 3-point line. So imagine Giannis if he was in drawing double teams, just like I'm playing in my park leagues, driving, double team, kick out to my guys who do nothing but shoot, and they're automatic money. That's essentially basketball nowadays. And if you can perfect that, you're going deep. And that's what the Warriors have done. That's what the Bucks did as a winning team. That's what the Suns did when they made it to the finals. And the Heat have to bring that back to them because that's what enabled them to be successful when they were in the bubble series.
Let's hop on over though to the final Eastern Conference matchup, which is the New York Knicks versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. And this was another one actually with a surprise game 1 victory going to the New York Knicks, followed up by a game 2 must-win game for the Cleveland Cavaliers. You couldn't go 0-2 home court and then expect to bring those two back at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
I think with matched up against a different team, I think you could say something else. But I think it's all but certain that the Knicks win one of these next 2 games, if not both. Like, I think the Cavs' inexperience in the playoffs is going to get exposed in game 3, especially. But I could still see them splitting, which would be a win in my book for the Cavs. Just get one of these games in New York, take back home court advantage, lock down in game 5, and then try to go back to Madison Square Garden to win it. Donovan Mitchell, you need to step up. All right. I think you're being a little coy. You're trying to be a good teammate. Enough. Like, you're brought on to be the X factor. You're brought on to be the leader, and I want to see that out of Donovan Mitchell. I think you saw it in game 2, and that led to the success and a win. And you saw him, dishing a lot more passes than, frankly, like he should. Again, a very, very similar critique I gave earlier, but like you got to attack. You got to always be in attack mode. And Donovan Mitchell, the Cavs are going to go as far as he wants to take them. The rest of the team is excellent. I'm not throwing shade at Jared Allen. I'm not throwing shade Darius Garland. They are excellent all-star caliber, all NBA caliber players. but Donovan Mitchell is the dude in Cleveland and needs to step up and act like it.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack in that series. I think that's the series that I don't want to be at a bar and sipping on beers with. That's the one I really want to key in and dial in, because again, I am a big proponent of the Cavs. Buy now if you were to treat the Cavs as a stock, or if you were to treat the Cavs as Bitcoin, I would say buy now, because the halving is coming up and they're going to be a scarce asset and they're going to blow up. In my opinion, the Cavs will be a 2 seed next year. And why? Because they have young pieces that play their role, that don't seem to have any sort of chemistry issues like the Celtics may, and they are finding themselves in a brilliant way. And I feel that, again, Mitchell played great in a loss in game 1, and Garland played great in a win in game 2. And they have this 1-2 punch at the guard position, and then they have these long players in the 4 and 5. As some people would argue with me, it's like, yeah, they can't stop Giannis with that. The jury, in my opinion, the jury's out on that. This is the type of team that is championship built and may not have the championship experience, and that means that, but one deep run or one run with a series or 2 win could say, okay, now they have the experience, now they're unstoppable. In my opinion, yeah, I could see them easily losing 1 game in Madison Square Garden, but I always had the Cavs in 6, and them losing to the Knicks, solid team, isn't going to derail the fact that this team is built better, coached better. In my opinion, I've never been a fan of what's Thibodeau. I think he always messes up in a similar way that Doc Rivers does. Wasn't he Doc Rivers' assistant coach?
Yes.
For the Celtics? Yeah, that's so funny how I see a correlation. I think that the team is coached better, they're built better, and they have these guards that are super confident. And that's something that matters. When I see a weakness in the Lakers where it's like, I'm not trying to get into the Lakers too much, but D'Angelo's kind of disappearing, and you don't see that in Garland or Mitchell, even in a loss. And you mentioned Mitchell in game 2. Guess what? Mitchell had half the points that Garland had. Garland had 32, 34. Mitchell had 17, but it felt like a winning 17. And that's the kind of stuff that champions are built by. And I think you're going to see the Cavs, if they play the Bucks, if they win, you're going to see them give them trouble. Not necessarily win. I think they'll win. But if they lose, no one's going to be surprised. But I would say that they will give the Bucks, they're like, oh my gosh, that was a close one.
I just think that they're having more problems with the Knicks. And again, like we've seen this time and time again.
They're a good team.
The team that ends up winning the championship struggled in the first round and then like cakewalk. Like we've seen that narrative so many times. So I'm not ruling it out by any stretch. But I think it is very telling that a Knicks team that is good but is not great. No one is picking the New York Knicks other than some people in New York to win the NBA.
Stephen A. Smith, right?
Like beyond that, like
right.
No reasonable, rational human being thinks the New York Knicks are winning the NBA championship.
That's right.
So then when you compare them to a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, which is the odds-on favorite to win the NBA championship, you start to then like, okay, maybe there is some credibility to if they can't handle Julius Randle, like how are they going to handle Giannis? Well, they handle Giannis because he might not be 100%. So I do want to though, just before we round out on the East Coast and wrap it up, to move on west. What do the Knicks need to do, in your opinion, to win this series?
Again, I think that Randall needs to really, not just the Knicks, every team needs to be able to somehow figure out how to create tempo in a world that is where the Cavs slow the game down. They do a great job of slowing the game down. Own the tempo, and that tempo means keep that pace up. Then that's what they need to do. If Randall can make those threes, stretch those big men out, create those mismatches on a pick and roll, and all of a sudden he's shooting over a smaller guard, over Karis LeVert or even Donovan Mitchell. Make those threes happen. I just don't see the Knicks as good as they are. Quickie, they have good role players. Toppin, the Knicks are going to be one of those teams. I see them as a baby Cavs. They're young, impressionable, but they're solid. They got players. I would say they're even more experienced because Randall and Brunson are older than their own stars, but they don't have the talent. And in my opinion, they don't have the chemistry that the Cavs manifest. So what do they have to do? They're going to have to stretch that floor. I would want to see Jalen Brunson make some longer range shots. I know he's the mid-range guy. He's going to have to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to be able to step back and make a few more threes than you expect me to. Same thing with Randall. Toppin as a three and dunk guy. I don't know about defense, but 3 and dunk. He's going to have to make those threes. Barrett is going to have to become more spot up. And this is really what it boils down to. The weaker team needs to be able to hit 3-pointers. That's always the case. That's always the case in order to keep up. And also I wanted to call out Mark Ellis and Wisdom Bars. Thought you liked Brooklyn tonight. I was drinking with Mark. Yes, of course I thought Brooklyn was going to win. They lost at the end.
They're your favorite team, you scrub.
Oh my gosh, they're not my favorite team. I just think that Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson are good rising stars. Taking the Bucks in 6 with Wisdom Bars, I do agree with that as well. I do think that even with Giannis hurt, number 1 team versus the number 8 Heat. The Heat are going to take a few because Jimmy Butler's a boss, but they're not going to beat a championship-ready Bucks team. And William Gonzer, my coworker, thanks for tuning in to the podcast after me only telling you about the podcast an hour before it started. I appreciate it, Will.
I'm going to make my call Cavs in 6.
Yes. What did I say before? Did we write that down? I'm pretty sure I said 6 or 5. I respect the Knicks.
I don't write any of this shit down, bro.
Of course. You wrote down, I'm sure you wrote down my defensive player of the year pick. You saw
he was literally stat stuffing. Like, cool.
It doesn't matter.
You picked, that was the most fiat pick.
It was because I know how fiat works. And
blocks numbers.
And what did I do? I agreed with your pick. I said Brook Lopez is a true defensive player of the year, but I knew what the NBA was going to go with.
Moving on west.
Moving on west.
Let's start at the top. Denver Nuggets versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, Jamal Murray, baby. This man is back with a vengeance in the playoffs. The Nuggets are sending a message, though. The Nuggets are like, it's not the Suns. It's not the Lakers. It's not the Kings. The Denver Nuggets finished number 1 in the NBA in the Western Conference, and we're here to remind everyone exactly why. Look, I don't expect the Timberwolves. They might snatch a game, maybe even 2, but by and large, I do expect the Denver Nuggets to waltz on out of this series. Your thoughts?
There's nothing much to say. I mean, the Timberwolves got smashed by the Lakers, and the Lakers, again, as good and talented as they are, they're very I don't want to say emotional, but inconsistent. And
we're not talking about the Lakers right now. You can take out your hatred for the Lakers in a little bit, but for right now, let's focus on the Timberwolves. Fair.
The Timberwolves are a limited mental team, mentally limited. And I still think that Gobert punch on Kyle Anderson is resonating with the team. I think Anthony Edwards is a star that's inconsistent. And Denver has been there in multiple first rounds and has blown past this with flying colors. It remains to be seen how they'll face up against a Lakers team, a Warriors team, a Sacramento team. All these teams are much more well refined than the Timberwolves. Timberwolves. So I think that the Timberwolves are just not a true test to how good the Denver Nuggets can actually be.
I would agree with that. I think the thing that I've really appreciated about the Nuggets, unlike a lot of these other teams, like I kind of brought up how the Celtics, I feel like, are almost playing down to their competition. I don't feel like the Nuggets have done that in either of these games. They've been like, we are the Denver Nuggets. This is what we're gonna do to you when we play you. And message has been received. They're doing their job as the number one seed that everyone looks and is talking about being vulnerable. They're sending the message that, hey, so long as we're here, we're the top dog, and you got to come through us. So,
But you got to remember that the Nuggets have also been notorious for being a regular season team. And so that's what they've been doing throughout the regular season. You could say that the first round could be an extension of the regular season. So again, the jury is still out on what the Nuggets can do until they really make it with a two-time MVP. Until they make it to the finals, they're always going to be seen as, oh yeah, they're like the Utah Jazz of the modern day. Not to trash on the Utah Jazz from the Malone and Stockton days, but they'll always be seen as like they took care of business in the regular season and they failed because they faced that black cat.
yeah, but honestly, I feel like that's disrespectful to those Jazz teams because at least they made the finals.
Yeah, totally agree. And I can't think of another team because guess what? You can't remember them because they never made it to the finals. That's very important. Was it the Rockets? Of the 2000s. You have to go back and look up teams like that. But teams with great records that didn't perform in the playoffs, they essentially disappeared. And the Nuggets don't want to be that team. They're going to have to, this season, if they don't make it to the finals, it's essentially a failure. So
let me ask you this. Would you rather never play in the NBA finals, but, get the job done in the season?
This is towards my little win share thing. Yeah.
Lose in the finals. And
100%.
either you are in both scenarios, you're the equal player. You can be the guy, the dude. You can be the number two. You can be the sixth man, whatever. You're the same on either team, but the end result is either you make it to the second round of the playoffs. That's the furthest you've ever made. You're Dominique Wilkins-esque.
You always want to go deep in the playoffs, no matter what. Because if you're making it to the playoffs and you're doing enough during the regular season, but if you make it through the playoffs, you're going to have enough memories that people who are paying attention to basketball say that was a player. A lot of people trash on Jerry West, John Stockton, Karl Malone, Charles Barkley. All of those guys are top 20 all-time players. Because even though they didn't win the finals, Jerry West won one. Jerry West won one out of the
West can't hold a stone to like Malcolm Brogdon, if we're being perfectly honest, man. Again, Jerry West.
No, you gotta stop. You gotta stop like playing like Back to the Future. If you take Marty McFly back to the 1950s, he knows everything about rock and roll. We're not trying to say that. We're trying to say, in the time that you were playing, Jerry West was extremely dominant, and you have to give him credit for the playoff games that he won, and I would give him credit for that.
And lost
at the end to the Celtics. But guess what? It's better than if you were not anywhere near it. So you rather be Dominique Wilkins and never sniff the finals than Karl Malone and John Stockton. Karl Malone and John Stockton get repetition in terms of all-time greats 10 times more than Dominique Wilkins did. But if Dominique Wilkins made the finals once or twice like they did, it would be a different narrative.
Okay.
Jerry West made the finals 9 times. That was
in an era where there were like 14 NBA teams. So
That's right. And the same reason we give Bill Russell all the credit, because he won with 14 NBA teams. So for that reason, his championship should. I agree, but guess what? You talk to Jalen Rose and you talk to you talk to Stephen A. Smith, and you talk to all the pundits and all the players in the 80s. Oh, Bill Russell, Bill Russell. They all have to bow down to Bill Russell. Bill Russell wasn't anything. Wilt Chamberlain was better than him. But guess what? Bill Russell happened to be on a stacked team in a small league, and they were able to monopolize power. It's simple as that. Doesn't make him any better, but guess what? He's good enough. He was good enough. So yeah, I'd rather make it to the finals and lose, because you're going to hear about my name every time. People who know, they're going to say, hey, you know that guy, you know, he made a bunch of 3-pointers. He scored all them points and lost. That's not his fault. That's his team's fault.
All right. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
We got 3 more series.
Thank you, Eddie. I see you. Coworker Eddie.
I got to chase all this Celtics talk with some good old-fashioned Lakers talk.
Of course.
My boys got it done in game 1. And let me tell you, they look good. They look damn good, I must say. And then they came back to earth in game 2. Now, the take I keep hearing is that the Lakers screwed up. The Lakers had the chance to be up 2-0. Memphis is down Steven Adams and John Morant. Like, you dropped the ball here. And while as a fan, I'm sitting there like, yeah, like, honestly, we should have won. We lost by 10 points? I was driving it and I was like, 10 points is honestly 2 3-pointers that we missed, and then 2 buckets that they made that they shouldn't have. And all of a sudden you're going to overtime. So, like, 10 points isn't a whole lot anymore, at least not to me. And while I understand and I'm frustrated, I'm sitting here like, we should be up 2-0 and then going home. The fact that we're going home, stealing a game on the road, stealing it in a game where John Morant was there. Okay, AD, I get it. You got a bad night. You had a bad night. Sure. Let's get it done. I think short of the Lakers, if the Lakers go back to Memphis, the series tied 2 games apiece, that becomes an uncomfortable situation to be in. If the Lakers get the job done, defend home court, and go back to Memphis up 3-1, this young and inexperienced Memphis team is going to have their back against the wall, and they can talk all they want. But this team was awfully silent on Sunday because they don't know how to handle shit when their back's against the wall. Not yet, at least.
Here's how I see that. And by the way, shout out to Kay, another coworker. Bill over Wilt. No, Wilt is for sure better than Wilt Chamberlain was for sure better than Bill Russell, hands down. Can't change my mind. In terms of the Lakers, the big key stat is 6 of 25, and 6 of 25 is the combination of D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Davis's field goal percentage. And I see that as, when you talk about law of averages, that ain't happening no more. I don't care what world you living in. I don't care what universe you subscribe to. Anthony Davis is not going to come out again and play that poorly. Even D'Angelo Russell, just from the fact that he averages 17 and 6, he's going to come out much, much, much better at home. This is a series where I see the Lakers easily winning, coming back to Memphis 3 games up to 1, with John Morant still, if he even plays. He's already a bad mid-range and long-range shooter, so he's limited on what he can do anyways, and they're going to even more so key into that. Remember Tyler Hero trying to made that 3 with a broken hand? This guy has tissue damage in his hand. He's going to feel every shot he takes, even if he's cleared to play. It's essentially over for Memphis, in my opinion, and we're going to see that. And the players that have underperformed are going to raise up their game to get to meet or close in on what their averages are. The Lakers are, again, like I said before, LeBron, AD, they're playing chess. They're not going to come out and stop. We're going to sweep these guys. they're too I don't know what to say, refined, sophisticated, full of themselves to do that. They like to box. They're not going to
They've
knock
been
you.
here before. That's the
They've
best way
been
of putting it, in my opinion. They've been here before, and this Memphis team is showing their cards
That's right.
and showing that they don't have that experience.
You're right. And they're going to win. The Memphis Grizzlies, the number 2 seed, they're not going to just go out without a fight. You know, Bane, what's his name? The guy who keeps on talking trash. Brooks. They're not bums. Like Bane is a great player. I mean, he's going to be an all-star in my opinion one day. But they're going to lose this series. The Lakers are the best team in the Western Conference after the All-Star break. It's going to elicit at least one playoff series victory. Jury's out for next series.
All right, respect. I'm going to take the Lakers in 6.
Yes.
Let's go to another 2-0 series, but I think this is one of the more surprising 2-0 series, despite the fact that the home team won both of their games. I'm talking about the Sacramento Kings. We're playing right now versus the Golden State Warriors. Warriors have looked a shell of themselves. They're looking good tonight so far, at least. But frankly, regardless, this is the Kings series to lose. I think that we might start to see the home road split in the Warriors really get exposed. And if by game 5 all we've seen is home teams win, it wouldn't surprise me if we see Sacramento go to 7 games and need 7 games to win it. That said, this Kings team has looked excellent. They have come out guns blazing. They are the highest scoring team from the regular season, and they are so far the highest scoring team in the postseason now as well. We're just 2 games in. I think it is, again, worth reminding you don't win championships with offense. All of these teams that have won the championship over the last 10 years, just 10 years, have been top tier defensive teams. So it's fun to watch the Kings. I want the Kings in round 2 against the Lakers. I think it'll be a great throwback to the early 2000s and that rivalry. But yeah, I think I'm interested to see what Warriors team shows up in game 4 and in game 5. Because if we get the teams that we're expecting, which is going to be a great performance in game 4 where they win, potentially tie that series up, and then in game 5, it's the road Warriors who are shells of themselves, can't be found, can't be bothered to play, Kings in 7. Do you think the Warriors have a shot here in this series?
No, I don't. I think that the Kings are going to win in 5. I think that they're as good as the home court advantages for the Warriors. I think they're going to break in this sort of lack of chemistry that we're seeing. In halftime right now, the Warriors are up by 12. They're shooting 35%. So it's an ugly win. I mean, the Kings are shooting 20% from the 3-point line. This is a game that Sacramento couldn't win 10 times out of 10. This is just impossible. 20% from 3 and facing up against the third best home record, maybe the first best home record in the league. But guess what? We're going back to Sacramento and they're going to get rolled. It's just I don't see a team where Curry is playing as inefficient as he is, where Wiggins is fresh back from his hiatus, where the coach of the year is your opposing coach. Klay Thompson can't cross over to save his life, and Jordan Poole is an Instagram meme. It's just not their year, and all the Golden State Warrior fans have to understand that they had their time and it's over.
So you're saying not only will the Warriors not win this, you're just calling an end to the Warriors dynasty.
What's his name? I'm so looking forward to our off-season talks where half the time is going to be, where is Draymond going to justify getting his $25 million a year deal for the next 3 years? Because I don't see it. And I would love to see what lottery team will pay him that much, because it ain't going to be the Warriors.
I'm telling you right now, Draymond Green is going to be a Laker. Like,
Oh,
he's going to come to LA
for veterans minimum, because a lot of people think that he is going to get his 25 million a year on 3 years, and I'm like, who's going to pay him except a bum team that's looking for a big face to plaster on their arena? This guy is a shell of himself, and himself was never much to begin with. Undersized power forward who can't shoot and never developed a jump shot. He's coming off on a as an unrestricted free agent this year. You think about Klay Thompson, who's a season removed from two critical injuries. This is just not, and Steph Curry keeps on getting closer and closer to 40. This is just not the team that you think, oh yeah, they're going to retool. They already retooled. They retooled 2-3 times. They traded their draft pick for what? I don't even know. Wiseman. Like, that was once they drafted Wiseman, and they realized that was a failure. That was it. That was their hope for extending their dynasty. It's done. And so, other people will come to understand, but I've seen it for the last year. Ever since they won that championship, it sold their soul to the devil for that one, because they're done. Kings in 5. They'll probably win tonight because it's an emotional win. But in my opinion, I said that they were going to win this to my buddies when we were at happy hour. They're going to win this because it's like, oh, Draymond's out, let's have this emotional win. And they're probably more efficient without Draymond being a non-shot producing player. Kevon Looney is a much better offensive player than Draymond Green is, from a cybermetrics and analytics perspective. When you see this team that started, Poole, Thompson, Curry, Wiggins, and Looney, it's much better than anything Draymond can add to the equation. In my opinion, Draymond takes away from them. As Kuminga gets older and wiser, he's going to fill in that position, much more athletic than anything Draymond can offer. It's like, what would I rather have? The guy who can dunk 2 hands from the free throw line, or Draymond Green? Sorry.
Fair.
Yeah.
Let's hop on over. We have about 10 minutes, a little less than 10 minutes left.
Sure.
For the last series. This is the Phoenix Suns, the home 4 seed, versus the little brother Clippers. Clippers getting that surprise game 1 win off of the back of Kawhi Leonard showing us young Kawhi. Honestly, more so than Russell Westbrook, despite him getting a lot of praise for a few very key defensive stops. He stepped up in the moment, sure. He didn't step up on the offensive end of the court, though. They showed us the Russell Westbrook that we've come to know and love and expect. Look, Kawhi's out tonight. I think I brought this up when the Bucks being sort of that potential, like they could have just sort of dropped game 1 and then boom, they'll win the next 4, move on, and not even worry about this and forgotten. I think the Suns are an excellent candidate for something like that as well. Look, the Clippers, you need Kawhi to go off to win. That's your recipe for success. I don't see any other possible path forward other than literally Kawhi just putting the team on his back. You muted yourself.
That's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, I would say that Kawhi is playoff Kawhi, young Kawhi, whatever you want to say, but he's balling out, win or loss. Westbrook had a great game 2, but they're going to need it with Paul George out. Westbrook could fill in as that alternate, like, big go-to player if he plays more like game two. I think that was a anomaly. He was 9 for 16, 8 for 8 free throws, and 2 for 3 at the 3-point line. 28 points. That, in my opinion, that's just not happening again, win or loss. Kawhi is going to have to put this team on his back until Paul George can come back. I don't think that there will be enough time. I think Phoenix will crush them just because everyone in Phoenix kind of knows what they need to do. And it's just a matter of, the firepower that you've alluded to in the past. Booker and Durant, say no more. Chris Paul is making every mid-range shot that he needs to in isolation. This is not a contest. Of course, that doesn't mean that, again, in a playoff series against a 4 and 5, that you're not going to have, the 5 seed. Yeah. The 5 seed win a game or even 2. But the Phoenix Suns, this is their series, and it's going to flesh out. Now, one thing, potential, I wouldn't say one wild card, but assuming Powell and Gordon can come together and be like this, like, oh my gosh, they're unstoppable offensively, then maybe they can match the firepower of the Phoenix Suns. But it's just like you're shaking your head right now. I just highly doubt. Quick shout out to a couple of comments. Draymond is good for defense, though. No, not good enough. I wish Draymond worked on his shot like he works his mouth. True. And he needs lessons from Brooks. I would say that Brooks is the second coming of Draymond. I would say Draymond 2.0. In terms of the trash talking. He's just a better version of what Draymond was. Draymond was never that great to begin with. He's a product of all-time great shooters.
Yeah, but I would honestly disagree and say that Dylan Brooks probably hasn't reached his full potential, so it's not fair to say, but I think like prime Draymond was, honestly, he was a bucket. You couldn't leave him open. He was a solid 3-and-D guy.
No, he was not a 3-and-D. We'll go back to the stats another time because we don't have much time. But yeah, I don't think he was a potential triple double, a low end triple double. Like he could get 10, 10, and 10.
Yeah, but like you couldn't, again, when he ran a pick and roll or a pick and pop with Steph or Clay, like you couldn't ignore him. And that made that more dangerous as a result, because you couldn't just crash on Steph, because Steph could then just hit Draymond as he's cutting or hit Draymond for the open shot, because Draymond at a point in his career.
He's an NBA player.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he's still an NBA player now. And to be honest with you, he gets the Russell Westbrook treatment a lot.
What is the Russell Westbrook treatment?
Shoot. I dare you to shoot.
Okay. Yeah, right. In which he is basically proving the opposing team right.
Absolutely.
Right. Finish your thought on this series.
Overall, I don't think it's fair to say Eric Gordon, if he can get hot, is going to score with the likes of Devin Booker or even KD.
The combination of him and Powell.
Right, but that would then assume that one of them is keeping pace with one of the other Phoenix Suns guys, and then the other Clipper is keeping pace with the other Phoenix Sun player. And I don't think Eric Gordon's name, as far as a scorer goes, is in the realm of the conversation as Booker or Durant.
Right?
And
no.
Even try to say Powell's name one more time in that sentence. At least Gordon's a scorer. I'll give you that much.
He's a very good, potent offensive player off the bench. He led the league in points off the bench, I think. So it's just a matter of can he elevate himself while George is out, and combine that with the stretching of the floor that Eric Gordon could potentially do. He hasn't shown it yet. He's been arguably inefficient from threes, 4 for 12 or I think 4 for 10 one game. Can those two role players combine to provide the offensive punch that the Clippers are missing from Paul George being out? I doubt it.
I
but
agree.
That would be, you would ask, how do they win? It would be by them elevating themselves.
I think the only way the Los Angeles Clippers win this series is if one of the Phoenix Suns players goes down hurt. I don't think there's a, they might steal another. They might somehow miraculously push this to 7. Sure.
Phoenix and 6.
Sure. I've seen crazier things happen in the NBA playoffs. But over the course of 7 games, the best team wins, and the Phoenix Suns are the best team.
Yes, sir.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up this week's episode?
Eddie, I don't want to address Russell's effectiveness right now. We could talk at work or during the off season. Kay said Brooks. That's true. Yeah, he needs lessons from Brooks. Yes, that's right. Brooks needs, if Draymond can play like Brooks, then we're talking about a potential series. But Draymond don't have the talent, the on-ball talent that Brooks has, and it's going to cost them the more he handles the ball. Very similar to how the more Russell Westbrook handles the ball, it will cost the Clippers that series. So yeah, that's it.
Who's the biggest cancer? Gobert, Draymond, or Russ?
I'm a proponent of Gobert as an all defensive, all-time greatness.
He's literally patient 0 in the NBA for COVID.
I would say Draymond.
He's the reason we had bubble basketball.
Gosh, if it wasn't him, it's just like Adam and Eve. If Eve didn't sin,
right? But guess what? He did. So therefore, I can point to him and say he's the reason I didn't get to watch my Lakers here in LA.
Oh man, and for that reason, it's for sure Draymond. It's for sure Draymond.
That's going to do it for another episode of the Bitcoin Ballers. We'll be back next week. Date and time TBD, but that'll be episode 10. I can't believe we're going to make it to 10 episodes without me killing you.
I speak the truth. Get out of here. Have a good trip.
That's a wrap.